Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. And we're just gonna ignore whatever is going on with my hair right now. Regardless, this one is for Type 1 Undead by AH Haga. This is technically the second one in the Disabled in the Age of Zombies series. However, these are meant to be read as standalones, so you can watch this review without having to watch my review for Survival Kit, although that will be in the description, without getting spoiled. And usually I would actually take umbrage with authors because so many authors will be like, you can read this as a standalone, but then they'll put so many references to things that happened in the previous book or other characters that you're like, I feel like I'm missing out. But this one, no, it does really read as a standalone. Basically because it is taking part in the same zombie apocalypse in Norway as the first book, but it's in an entirely different part of the country, and the characters don't even know of each other. They make vague references to what happened in Oslo or whatever. But it definitely does feel separate enough. However, it does actually build a little bit on the world building for the first book, because the first book I really liked the different dynamics of the zombies. In that one, you discover that not only can being bitten make you a zombie, but also getting any zombie fluids in any cut or in your eyes or mouth could infect you. On top of that, you also have the fact that the virus that turned the first people into zombies still exists in certain water supplies and meat supplies, basically any animals that drink of the tainted water supplies. So it adds an extra level on top of that, and there's just so many things to keep on the lookout for. Well, in this one, on top of all that, it also adds the effect that the zombies cannot see or hear any of the survivors, but they can sense them through their heat signatures. Essentially, their eyes aren't working because, they're rotting out of their heads, and I guess the soft tissue of the inner ear would probably go as well, but they can hone in on anyone's heat signature, and as a result, it kind of adds some new developments where you can be as loud as you want, you can have as many loud noises, but they could even sense you through a wall, even if you were silent. You have to put multiple walls between you and zombies before they stop sensing you, or you have to go up high. So at one point they're in a forest and they're up in the trees to avoid zombies being able to sense and find them. And I thought that was a really cool dynamic. And the only reason that you even know it in this one is our main character had a brother-in-law who was in the military, and the military was one of the first people to see the zombies up north, and told her what was going on so she can tell other survivors. And our protagonist is a very, very angsty, incredibly angsty woman who's got that kind of brooding, I hurt everyone that gets close to me vibe. She, in case you couldn't tell from the title, has type 1 diabetes, so that's a constant issue for her because she's scrounging for whatever food she can get, and as a result, it's not like she has easy and simple calorie counts to go on to measure how much insulin she needs to give herself. And obviously, when so many places are without power, and insulin requires refrigeration, finding enough fresh insulin is also a giant issue, but she's basically ready to lay down and be done with the world when she meets these 3 survivors and basically feels guilted by the ghost of her dead sister into helping them. And I mean guilted by the ghost in a metaphorical sense, the ghost isn't literally popping up. I could understand why you would think that because it's already speculative, but no, it's all in her brain. Anyway, she is very much that you can't get close to me, I'm too dangerous, broodiness. And then we have a lovely sapphic little romantic subplot here, which fun. But I get the gist that this wasn't always meant to be a sapphic romance. The author mentions in either the foreword or the acknowledgments, I can't remember, that this manuscript was originally written a long time ago and went through a lot of rewrites, and you can tell because it's Riss and then 2 other women and a man. And so it's 3 women and one man. But there are certain times in the dialogue where either Riss or Lyra, the pregnant woman, will refer to the men, but there's no other characters. So my guess is that Bex, our sapphic love interest, was not necessarily always a man. But you know what? Sexual awakening, we love that for the author. It was just a little interesting thing I caught as I was reading. But the dynamics are very tense. I hate Patrick. I hate the husband. I hate the pregnant woman's husband. He can... Like, you know that vibe you get during a horror movie with the boyfriend that's like, ugh, the house isn't haunted, that thinks his girlfriend is like just going crazy? Like that vibe. Take that vibe. Put it in a zombie apocalypse. That's Patrick. Like, he is constantly arguing with everything Riss says, and he's constantly like, you can't steal, that's wrong. But it's like, it's apocalypse, okay? The morality's a little different here. And a lot of those scenes can get a little bit annoying because Patrick just reads as absolutely oblivious and delusional, or too type A to be real, because, like, yeah, you can scavenge in an apocalypse. That's, like, widely accepted. If you're scavenging from like, just abandoned places, that's just widely accepted to be okay in an apocalypse scenario. So this whole, you can't scavenge from this house filled with dead people, that's wrong. Like, no one's owning that stuff anymore. Regardless, the setting continues to be fun because, again, this story takes place in Norway, and if you're not looking for it, it may not be totally immediately apparent that this is taking place in a non-American setting, except for the fact that what we would call pharmacies, this book refers to as apothecaries, which just made my D&D Ren Fair heart go wee. Or there are other things like there's a lot fewer guns than you would expect from an American post-apocalypse, which I also mentioned in Survival Kit. And another little random one-off that just stuck in my brain for some reason is they're scavenging this apartment. Patrick is complaining because of course he is. And the main character notes that, oh, the people that lived here must have had a big sweet tooth, but she explains it because she sees a large amount of, like, potato chips and Cheetos or something like that, which you could tell is a very non-American thing because Americans don't consider that as having a sweet tooth. That's junk food, obviously, but, like, what Americans consider being high in sugar is very different than the rest of the world. There's a reason we have such a problem with teeth and dentistry over here. But anyway, it just reminded me that, this is clearly a non-American book, which is fun though. This one is from a member of the community, not just like, yes, she's Norwegian, obviously, but also, she does have type 1 diabetes. And the only struggle I had with the type 1 diabetes in this story, because for the most part, it added an extra level because she's constantly trying to second guess how much insulin to give herself, and it becomes an issue, and she needs to find enough, like soda, because soda helps give her a lot of sugar when things are crashing, is the synopsis alludes to a lack of insulin as being a big issue. And theoretically, it would be because it needs refrigeration. Most places are without power unless they have generators. So finding refrigerated insulin that will keep is getting rarer and rarer. And yeah, it brings up that idea in theory. However, over the course of the story, you never see it on page. At no point on page is she like, I'm out of insulin and we can't find any that's not expired. And so I don't know if that was just supposed to be an overreaching thing, like on the far-flung future, or was supposed to reiterate the fact that she's not gonna live very long in this apocalypse regardless. And I think it's kind of easy for us to forget in the modern age, but before the creation of artificial insulin, the vast majority of diabetics, well, type 1 diabetics, died as children. Very, very rarely before the creation of artificial insulin did anyone born with diabetes live to full adulthood or to be full healthy adults. So this story does bring up that very crucial concept of there are a lot of people that are really dependent on modern medicine, and also it brings up to mind how absolutely horrific it is that people will charge so much for this thing that people literally need to live. Regardless, it didn't necessarily come up, but the diabetes did come up in other ways, in other crucial moments. But like getting enough soda was actually a bigger deal in the actual plot of the story than getting insulin. Now, for the ending, which obviously I am not going to go too far into, but I will say I was surprised that she was willing to go that hard, because yes, this is a post-apocalypse, and yes, Survival Kit does have like a vaguely bittersweet maybe, or open-ended, I guess. I'm not quite sure how to quantify that one. This one did not open at all. Well, no, maybe kind of like a little, but also in ways very shut. I'm making no sense, am I? Something about it felt up in the air for a reason I could not fully put into words. Like, it felt like this ending didn't really finish anything. And again, I don't know if I'm putting that into words correctly. But it did go very hard. Obviously, this book has so many things of gore and zombie fights and very big zombie fights. And, suicide ideation. A lot of suicide ideation for this one. And I believe towards the end, there are vague references to sexual assault. It is never directly spoken outright, and is never shown on page, but it's the subtext. This character went through this, and they just kind of introduce it and let it slide. So there's that. But in general, I gave this book 4 stars. I think I liked Survival Kit a little bit more, but that one also had adorable wives in it. The romance in this one felt a little bit more like it was literally just, we're in an apocalypse, I need the comfort kind of thing, as opposed to we're in love, which is a valid romantic-esque subplot for a post-apocalypse, so that's fine. But I love the adorable wives. Regardless, I would highly suggest this one if you're interested in post-apocalyptic stories, especially if you've been reading a lot of them and you want something different, because this one, both in the setting and the mechanics, and third thing, the protagonist's disability offers a lot of nuances that don't normally pop up in a lot of zombie stories. So I think this would be a great change of pace if you've been reading a lot of these. I am looking forward to where the series goes next, what other disabilities we are going to look into in an apocalyptic setting, and if we can get even more world building on top of everything else. I am currently still open, technically, mostly because I don't want to close so soon after opening again. But I did myself dirty. I accepted way too many review books. But I'm going to try to get these read. So if you're interested, you can send me a review request. All of that information will be down in the description below. But, like, maybe be prepared for a really long wait time. With nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.